Hello, my name is Mike Gutierrez. Today I'm going to be talking about reading, writing, and learning in ESL. And I'm going to focus on one specific topic that I found interesting in Chapter 1. So let's get started. Creating a sense of belonging, I thought, was a common theme in Chapter 1, and I feel like it's very important to not only English learners, but history and social science, which I'll get to in a bit. So factoring culture is important. It's a teacher's role to be both a participant and observer in factoring culture. So one of the things that I found to be helpful in this book was little tips that they gave, such as keeping a log of your students, which is a good way to get to know them, to understand where they come from, their background. So you just jot notes down after every class. And this kind of harkened back to when I was in elementary school. One of the activities they had us make is to create a autobiography. So this was a fun way to get us engaged and to sort of introduce ourselves to the teacher. So we had to write a brief story about who we were, talk about our parents, our upbringings, where we came from, where they came from, and it didn't really feel like we were doing work. It felt more like a fun activity that everyone would get to just share out loud to the class. So you're not only building a bond with your student, but you're also creating connections from student to student. So I thought that was a helpful way to sort of incorporate culture into um, the curriculum. Another thing that the book talks about that I thought was interesting was discussing issues of culture. Particularly, English learners might need more time to process answers and questions. So I related this back to myself again. As an English learner myself, whenever a teacher would ask me a question, it would take me a moment to process the question and to come up with an answer within my own head. So I first had to translate the question in my mind, and I just didn't want to. I was shy. I didn't want to say the wrong thing or say it incorrectly. So it would take me a moment to really digest what was happening and then say it in a manner that was correct. So this is one of the things that we have to keep in mind as teachers is to really understand that other cultures might not be as well equipped in answering questions, and just also some cultures see participation and as being disruptive or disrespectful. So there's a strict authority of adults and children who don't speak unless they're spoken to. That's another issue that was raised in this chapter that I thought was interesting. Just that there are kids that may come off as more assertive, therefore more intelligent, which is just a misconception because in other cultures they are teaching children to respect authority and only speak when you're spoken to. So it doesn't account for any sort of lack of knowledge, but rather just cultural upbringing. So just be aware of that. And the way I connected this to history and social science was that students must feel welcomed and represented. It's important to create a nurturing and welcoming environment in all of our classes. So when you're teaching about history, I feel that it's important to make it relevant to the students, not just teach them facts and dates that they have to memorize, but make them understand why it's important to learn these topics. A common question that I've heard when either tutoring or have been in the classroom is, why does this matter? Students see pictures that are in black and white, or they just assume these are old white men that have died years ago. So how is that important now? Why is it relevant? So one of the ways that we can sort of make this connection and make this relevant to students is to talk about history where they are represented. For black and brown and minority students, we can talk about the Black Panther movement. We could talk about the Chicano rights movement. We could talk about women's liberation movements. We can talk about LGBTQ rights. There are so many aspects in history where we can make that connection with our students and make them feel that history is a living and a relatable topic. So those are my takes on how we can make history culturally sensitive, but also relatable and engaging to our students. Thank you.